Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Backlot Banter movie review. My name's Sarkis, of course. I'm joined by my two co-hosts here, who are really, when you think about it, just legacy sequels of their elementary school selves. And today we're here to talk about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, a movie that maybe didn't have the greatest buzz, but we have seen it, and here to give our official thoughts, of course. Subscribe, like, comment. It's a YouTube video. Fuck you. Indiana Jones, we are big fans of this series, and the fifth movie just came out, and we've seen it. Abram, I want to start with you. What are your thoughts on Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which actually just showed up on the TV?
Look at that.
It's Destiny, boys.
Yeah. Tucker, when I was a kid, I ran an Indiana Jones fan club.
Is that true?
This is true.
That's
However,
incredible.
to be fair, as a
many
young
people?
child, it was only people in my own family who
Oh.
out
So
of
like four?
right, who out of
Okay.
sense of pity came to my fan club.
see.
The meanings of it.
Cute, but also sad. Continue.
The point being, I have loved Indiana Jones for a long time. And much like sort of the attendance of the fan club, I would describe Dial of Destiny as sad.
Sure.
I think that this is a poor movie, and it was a massive disappointment to me for a number of reasons. Principal among them, the fact that since I was a kid, I've loved this franchise, and I finally got the opportunity to kind of see Indy's story, what I think kind of figured was close
Yeah.
up on the big screen, and what we got instead was a film that didn't really seem like it was that interested in being part of the franchise that Steven Spielberg created.
Yeah.
With editing and writing and acting decisions that I think are just not good.
Yeah.
By traditional metrics, it's a mediocre adventure film. As an Indiana Jones movie, I think it is a major bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Abel, I think that last thing you just said there is pretty apt, I think. If you divorce it from the Indiana Jones mythos, it's not even that good. But when you have the expectation of maybe one of the greatest film trilogy / quadrilogy series...
Crystal is good.
On it, when you put that expectation on it, it only gets worse. I think we are undermining a lot of groundwork that was laid in the original trilogy, including even Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And what we're left with is just a reminder that no one can really recapture that Spielberg magic.
Yeah, definitely.
And when James Mangold tries to, it's just a big whiff. It's a big whiff of a movie, frankly.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect way to describe it, because I think this movie's biggest sin is that 5 crazy guys sitting in a movie theater. We love seeing movies. We love getting excited about movies.
Yep.
We all sat there and basically felt nothing for 2.5 hours. There wasn't any hooting and hollering. Oh my god, I can't believe he killed that guy in that way. I can't believe the stunt is doing this. Oh, this there's some scene tension here. There's not any emotional stakes. It's kind of just a ride that's intended to be bumpy, but then it's not. And the movie felt like such bland, smooth sailing all the way through that by the end, it felt unearned. The ending that we now have for Indiana Jones is, frankly, and I guess this is a spoiler, but not that much different than the ending that we got with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, so this movie doesn't really feel like it adds too much. Mm-hmm. And the things that it does add are just worse and less interesting than the elements that came before. And because the filmmaking is lacking so much of the energy, I think we're going to get into the writing, we're going to get into the editing, the acting. It doesn't add anything to the series. It's just another action movie, but not even another Indiana Jones action movie, because those movies all had a special kind of energy and charisma to them that Dial of Destiny just absolutely does not.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's the important point, because Tanner, you're saying that, who can recapture Steven Spielberg's magic? Maybe nobody can. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that the material answer here is that James Mangold can't.
Yes.
And what's interesting is...
he's the only one who we know that have tried. They're 0 for 0 trying to recapture Spielberg magic.
I mean, we know that this movie was heavily written and rewritten and rewritten and rewritten. I mean, there are a lot of credited writers, and it's interesting that the sum of all of those parts was just something that felt so far away from the source material in terms of tone. And I think this is my biggest issue with the movie, especially when the guy you bring in to just get it across the line does not make really joyous films.
So here's my thing. So obviously, Dial of Destiny was sold on James Mangold directing this thing, being like, I'm gonna make Logan for Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
And say what you will about Logan, maybe people are turning on Logan, I don't know. But what it is a film that is very very aware of the legacy of Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, and also very in tune with like the idea of aging out of a role that you felt you were in for a long time and passing along to a next generation, and feeling one's own mortality, and those things are like sort of grazed upon in Indiana Jones: The Dial of Destiny, but not addressed or done in any compelling way or interesting way or way that makes me think that they actually tried.
I think
frankly,
I think there's something missing there though, because Logan is a much more serious film than the other X-Men movies.
Yeah.
However, it's not that far off thematically and tonally.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the major problems with Dial of Destiny is the Dial of Destiny entirely throws out the slapstick humor of the past films.
Yes.
There's a couple jokes, there's a couple things, but I think it's really hard to sell me on the idea of this being an Indiana Jones narrative when the character does not walk and talk, partially because of age, but partially because of script, in the ways that the character did in the past.
Yeah.
I mean, we were bringing up the analog of Harrison Ford in the Star Wars films, particularly in Force Awakens. Force Awakens, even though it does age his character and he's in a very jaded place in his life, not unlike this Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
The Force Awakens, beyond the character, still has all of the tenets of Star Wars.
Yes.
I don't think that this really does.
No.
Yeah, the slapstick humor element is something that I had forgotten was a major part of those movies until we just went back and watched all of them in preparation for this, and that was frankly my main takeaway, and I think the reason why those films feel more distinct from other action movies that are taking inspiration. There are plenty of Indiana Jones type movies, but most of them don't have the energy and camp that Indiana Jones has, and this movie, as you said, largely drops that. And now that I have rewatched those, I've realized that's kind of what Indiana Jones was, why it felt special, and frankly why I think it was so entertaining to me. Even if I hadn't consciously registered it, I love comedy movies and I like action movies, and frankly I like them most when both are combined.
Red Notice.
No, well, okay.
He said comedy. He said action.
It has to be funny. But Dial of Destiny, I think for me, the biggest problem, other than lacking the humor and the camp tone to it, is it's a movie obsessed with dropping its own tensions.
Yeah.
This movie has so many small ideas of, we're going to set up a character with a motivation like this, we're going to set up a scene that is gearing towards something, we're going to... And either within a scene or a couple scenes, it's just dropped and nothing really matters, and so there's no real momentum for this movie. They are chasing a Dial of Destiny, they get one part, they get another part. That's the sort of forward momentum, is like basic, we have this, we need to get there to get that. But otherwise, it's just a bunch of people kind of going from place to place, and the tensions just appear and disappear at the drop of a hat.
Oh, very nice. Well, even then, Tucker, all the Indiana Jones movies are going to a place to get a thing.
Sure, yeah.
But what we build out around that is the important part. We have compelling side characters. We have Harrison Ford bringing the classic movie star charisma. And he was 78, 79 when he was making this thing. And I still stand by that he's got some of that innate movie star charisma here. But it's waning for sure. It's waning for sure. I mean, King with the Crystal Skull was like, looking back on it now, just rewatching it, he seems so comparatively young, and he was 15 years younger now, and it really feels just different in Dial of Destiny. It feels as though he doesn't have the energy, and we're not matching that classic Indy energy in the filmmaking either. So. And then you have, very forgettable side characters. The big addition is, of course, Phoebe Waller-Bridge as Helena, who is supposed... The Wombat. Who is supposed to be, I feel, sort of this Temple of Doom-style indie character who, is out there for the fame and the fortune, doesn't really care about other people outside of herself, and her child sidekick, Teddy, who we all know and love. I mean, talk about classic indie characters, Teddy's going to stand the test of time. I'm, of course, joking. We all did not care for Teddy too much. Yeah. But what do they have to do? I mean, we're talking about, that idea of Phoebe Waller-Bridge being a young indie type and old Indy being there, and what can they learn from each other? The answer is nothing, really. I mean, she has a very basic arc of learning to care about others, but it's not done in any compelling way. And the revelations for her arc are not clear, and they're not interesting, and they're not emotionally moving.
Yeah.
I just don't think that this is a film worth discussing, frankly.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, that's what it comes down to for me, because as you guys are talking, it's like, there's no spirit here.
Yeah.
Because you think about the side characters, there's nothing especially defining about them. I mean, I think that Phoebe Waller-Bridge is probably the best part of the film, in my opinion.
Yeah, okay.
But even a lot of the most interesting things about her character, we don't see that they're told to us.
Yeah.
Sure.
Or sort of alluded to in like flashback moments of her as a young kid growing up around these men who are adventurous and get her mind going on these quests. Or we learn like she's been arrested in the past for selling auction contraband, and the couple moments where we see her in action are fun. But it just feels like the sum of the parts is a bunch of people that were rewriting a thin idea.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what it comes down to, because in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, for as much as that movie is weird, it's clear that it was George Lucas and it was Steven Spielberg, and when they're sitting down and they're coming up with something, everyone's having fun.
Yeah.
And I think you can make a serious movie that still feels fun by being reverent and by having thorough ideas and great action sequences, but I just don't think any of that comes across here.
Yeah.
And it comes down to just these fundamental issues with muddied boardroom filmmaking. How many people touched this movie?
Yeah.
Probably a whole lot. How many people were in that editing bay cutting and recutting the action to absolute incomprehensible shit?
Yeah.
Probably a lot. Like, I think that there's so little authentic about Dial of Destiny.
Yeah.
The authenticity and sort of realism of this film, I think, is my biggest strike against it in terms of comparing it to the other movies, because there's so little weight in this movie. The Indiana Jones action sequences of the past are sold on as much practicality as you could possibly get.
I think back to the tank in Last Crusade.
Oh, yeah.
When not Harrison Ford, but Harrison Ford's body double actually did the jump off of a horse running on a ledge onto a tank.
Yeah.
Real stuff. Real guy did that.
From what I can tell in this movie, basically no real stunts.
Yeah.
I mean, like, maybe there was some car stuff or that chased in Africa, Greece. All these locations start to blend together a little bit, but the action sequences I thought were so uncompelling, and I think, to your credit, Abram, not edited well enough to where nothing felt real. And even, frankly, in the sequences that James Mangold and his team have said, these are real sets and we had real people, they're so mixed in with CGI elements and then cutting to an insert shot of someone on a rooftop that is a green screen with no real depth behind them. It's hard to tell.
The centerpiece of them is a CGI Harrison Ford, because again, he's 78 years old.
It was a flawed premise from the beginning because he can't do the stunts.
Yeah. I want to talk about. I don't know what we're doing for spoilers. Maybe we'll do spoiler free. Who cares? But the opening of the film. It's been in the trailers, so it's fine. You see a de-aged Harrison Ford, and have we learned nothing from Martin Scorsese's The Irishman? Okay. Because the de-aging looked fine in still images, as Tucker said. The very same for Dial of Destiny. Like, in stills, it can look fine. But when you're in motion and you're having it being voiced by 78-year-old Harrison Ford, it feels wrong. Like, it just snaps you out of any sense of, like, fantasy that the de-aging has lulled you into, frankly. When he's talking and moving around like an old man, and then he switches suddenly to being a CGI rubber guy running on top of a train.
Yeah.
It's just, it doesn't, there's nothing real there. To Tucker's point, there's nothing real or material to grab onto in that sequence, or frankly for the rest of the film.
It's just not a good idea. De-aging is and has always been a novelty.
Yeah.
It was a huge novelty in The Irishman. And what was weird about The Irishman that I used to always make fun of is that the de-aging, the facial de-aging was quite good, but they all had old man bodies.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the thing.
And I don't think that is as bad here, but it's the issue of the voice. Because the voice does not make sense for the age of the character. And because of that, I just watched that scene and I'm like, okay, a bunch of people decided, you know what's going to get a bunch of the audience motivated?
Yeah.
Seeing Harrison Ford again.
Uh-huh.
But what was so fun about the beginning of Last Crusade? Young Indy. But not because, oh my god, that kid's the spitting image of Harrison Ford. Because it was interesting seeing this other chapter in Indy's life. And it's a fucking movie, folks, right? So we casted a younger actor, and it was understandable. Now, maybe that's hard to do because you want to...
Maybe we get Aaron Reich.
Honestly,
could've.
just do it. Honestly.
The thing, yeah, because that would have been actually kind of a funny meta thing to do.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you might be like, oh, well, it's going to be tricky because we're trying to go post, Crystal Skull. In Last Crusade, we're obviously going so far back. But then there's the crazy option here was, don't write that scene.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think that's part of the problem.
Hey, listen, and this is another issue. Makes the movie 20 minutes shorter, which it needs.
Yeah,
the movie's
it's
2.5.
definitely
This movie's 2.5 hours long, half an hour longer than any other Indiana Jones film. And what do we do with that time?
Well, yeah, it doesn't feel like it has too much going on because it does end up feeling kind of simplistic. I think on a writing level, as I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of ideas introduced and dropped, like the CIA working with the Nazis, like multiple backstory elements for Helena, that just don't do anything for the story. And because of that, I feel like I got the least out of the longest runtime. And so I struggle to think, how is this so much longer than the other ones? Like, are this action sequences longer? They maybe felt that way, maybe not. So. It's so perplexing that there's like an extra 30 minutes tacked on there. And I think you're right. It probably is that opening section that is pretty long, all things considered, because I don't care until Harrison Ford, as I know him, as a real person in a real apartment, shot with James Mangold and his cinematographer, doing a pretty good job at capturing light streaming in through windows and the rich browns of this New York environment. That feels like a place. It feels like I'm reconnecting with Indiana Jones. That beginning part is supposed to recapture Indiana Jones, but I think the primary thing for me, not only is his body and face not good in terms of how it's moving around, but the emotions of this character don't come through in that sequence because there's something wrong with his eyes, and when he turns his head, you can like kind of see like CGI morphing around like the bag that's like on his neck, and it's like I can't be sold into a charmless main character whose entire personality was based on that charm. That's why we love these movies, and he tries to recapture some of that charm when he's older, but he is older, and Harrison Ford is noticeably more tired in this movie, and so neither aspect supports one another. When you show him younger and it doesn't work, then you're searching for that more out of older Indiana Jones, and then when he naturally can't have it because Harrison Ford has been doing this for 40 fucking years, then it makes that feel worse. And so there's like an opposite synergy there.
Yeah. If I can wrap it up. So I'll just like, you look at everything that we've talked about, all the talking points that we've had, all the bullet points here. Harrison Ford is frankly too old to be in this role anymore. Crystal Skull was like the perfect age for a send-off to Indy, frankly. It does not have the Spielberg magic. James Mangold cannot recapture that, and James Mangold doesn't bring anything of his own to this because it's a failed premise to make a Logan for Indy because the writing's just not there for it.
Yeah, especially because Indiana Jones is actually a pretty simple character.
Yeah.
The personality traits and history that Logan has had, and like he has so much more to him, and like internal conflict. Indiana Jones, I mean, I watched 4 movies of the guy, but his internal conflict doesn't really exist, and they try to introduce some here with the fact that he's older and the world's kind of moving on without him, but that's not really touched upon.
That's the thing. And so you want to make this thing of like it's 1969. It's the space race, and Indiana Jones feels like the world has moved on without him. It's a world that doesn't need Indiana Jones anymore. But the settings are immaterial. We hardly have any characters to ground us in that scenario, and we're far too caught up in the idea of doing a classic indie adventure to spend any time examining that idea. And frankly, the one character that you do have to sort of explore that idea, Helena, the material's just not there in her character writing.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. It would be so easy to write Helena, well, not easy, but it would make sense thematically to write Helena as someone who's taking adventuring in the modern way, and this is going to be better than the way that Indy was going to do it, and she was going to sort of replace him and stuff. But that's not in her character. As it stands, she just wants money. But so that doesn't even play into the Indy being replaced thing, or like feel like the world's moving on without him, or that adventuring has changed since his day. No, she's still pulling from the things that he and Toby Jones learned before, so she's not even playing into that theme.
Yeah,
bizarre. I didn't really think about it that way.
Also, just to say the rest, action's not good. Doesn't
She agrees.
Action is not good. The acting isn't very good. And it ends in just a bizarre way, but it's not bizarre. The whole film is not bizarre enough to earn that, and it feels like we're really shrugging off what people thought was the silliness of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Sure. And we're far too grounded, and then we swing into the last 20 minutes being wildly bizarre for not enough time and not explored enough. I don't know.
I just think that this movie is transparently a meta production from people who wanted to make a movie that doesn't make sense. And it's making me upset, it's making the cat upset.
Okay.
Don't watch Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. It's going to be Disney Plus in 4 months.
Yeah.
And you're going to fall asleep while you're watching
3.8 out of 10.
Whatever.
Yeah. Same.
Bye.